Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody joining us now. Good to see you all joining us on screen. We're just going to give people a couple of minutes to join and then we'll start. Very exciting to be able to present the jurisdictional dialogues to you. I'm Simon Cooper, Communications Lead for GCP and UNDP, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies throughout the session today, which will last for an hour. We have obviously our names on screen, but if you want to say hello, as people are doing already in the chat, then that will be good to hear who you are and where you're from. And also, if you'd like to say in the chat, we have, when we get to the breakout groups in the middle of the hour, one of those breakout groups will be for people who want to speak Spanish only. So if you'd like to join that Spanish only group, please say so in the chat and we'll make sure we allocate you to that. And talking of Spanish, we have interpretation from English to Spanish, and the button is at the bottom of the screen to bring that about. So I think we're just about ready to go. If you'd like to write in the chat who you are, it'd be good to be able to see that coming up. And don't forget to nominate that you'd like to be in the Spanish only meeting room later on, if you'd like that. It's great to have such a variety and diversity, not only of participants, but also background photos. So yeah, good to see all of that in the background of everybody. What I'd like to do then to start us off is to hand over to our host for the event. And if you'd like to put the slides up, Lavinia, we can introduce both our sponsors. So you see along the bottom of the screen there, BMZ, GIZ, the GEF and the Good Growth Partnership, all of those supporting this innovative action learning program of the jurisdictional dialogues between India and Colombia. So I'd like to hand over now to UNDP's UN Assistant Secretary General and Director of Bureau for Policy and Programme Support. If we can put Howlang's slide up, Lavinia, then he'll know it's him. And we can then move on to his opening comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. Should I get started?
If you just get started, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, great.
There's your name.
You can hear me, okay.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. So let's hear from you about the importance of these dialogues.
No, thank you very much, Simon. Dear colleagues, dear friends, wherever you are from at this time, welcome to you. For those who don't know UNDP, I just want to say that UNDP is the United Nations organization leading efforts to end the injustice of poverty, inequality, and climate change. We're working through our broad network of experts and partners in and outside the UN in 170 countries, helping our countries to build integrated, lasting solutions for people and the planet. That's our mission. And food systems are central to this objective. UNDP's food and agricultural commodity systems portfolio covers more than 100 countries and supports close to 500 landscapes. That portfolio include initiatives that focus on increasing the resilience of agricultural systems and the food security for more than 3.7 million people in more than 1,000 smallholder farming communities and across 40 countries. So this food and agricultural commodity systems program is led by Andrew Pavanik, who you will hear from later. And our subject today is jurisdictional dialogues and held between sustainable agricultural practitioners in Indonesia and Colombia. We need dialogue programs like this because our current environmental crisis reflects a leadership crisis in our view. And the potential impacts of this, is far outweigh, those of COVID-19, because this is a planetary crisis. So we must train and support a new kind of leader practitioners across the globe that both, conceptually understand the systems thinking, but also have culturally specific skills in facilitation and the team building. So part of the solution and the change, we need involves shifting the emphasis and the balance of development assistance from technical analysis, planning, and the solutions from discrete and top-down project level, a lot of projects, individual scattered projects, towards a multi-stakeholder collaboration across the spectrum of project cycles. That's what we will hear from the jurisdictional dialogue team, using UNDP's four-dimensional systems change report as their key learning resource. The benefits of multi-stakeholder collaboration will hopefully become very clear. And as one participant once said, after these dialogues, so I was able to stand in someone else's place, not as myself anymore. So what this tells me is that when we can see the world as others see it, the silos, really start to break down, and the true system change, will become possible. So, to close, let me say that we could not have achieved, this without the assistance colleagues in Indonesia and Colombia. And certainly our German partners, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, and the GIZ. I welcome now our co-host today, Lisa Köpfler-Ruhr, from BMZ, to give us, her view of the value of these dialogues. So over to you, Simon and Lisa.
Lisa, if you can hear us clearly, would you like to start your comments on the support, the excellent support that Germany gave us?
Maybe Simon, you can introduce Lisa quickly, because I think.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had a tiny technical problems. Yes, so now I'm here. Yes, good morning and good afternoon, noon and good evening. So it's really a global event where, global crisis and global events are needed. So it's really my pleasure to welcome you to this event in the name of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ. And thank you very much for inviting me today. And thank you, Assistant Secretary General Xu, for inspiring opening words. Thank you. The world's forests are under pressure, you named it. Despite the considerable efforts of the global community, we are facing rising deforestation rates in the tropics. Ironically, exactly in 2020, when so many companies and initiatives had committed to zero deforestation by 2020, and the New York Declaration on Forests had planned to halve natural forest loss by now. So it's we all know about the problems, but we really have to focus more on solutions and work together. And there's no silver bullet, no one size fits all, no blueprint. Because the climate crisis is as big as never before, and so we have to hurry up. If we want to effectively address deforestation, we must face up to the complexity of systems, and we need to think as well beyond individual supply chains, and the pressure for zero deforestation from global supply chains must be implemented at scale. We have to think big. We have to address whole landscapes or jurisdictions and regional approaches. That's not new either, but we have to think it new for this specific problem. It is necessary to think holistically and aim at all dimensions of sustainability: biodiversity loss, deforestation, climate change, sustainable production, productivity, food security, and as well living income and wages. Everything is interconnected. And we have to address demand side, of course, with supply side measures. So it's not only a matter of our development cooperation, but of all different kind of policy fields. And this is why DMZ strongly welcomes that the European Commission will present a legislative proposal addressing the risk of deforestation and forest degradation in products placed on the European market. And the proposal will come up in June 2021, so this June. And we are convinced, so BMZ is convinced that demand-side measures must be accompanied, of course, by support mechanism for our partner countries, for production countries. We therefore strongly support the EU forest partnerships to implement deforestation-free supply chains and to support them. But in a globalized world, governments alone cannot induce the changes. Indeed, we need to include all relevant actors to make a change. So since a long time, we do work together with multi-stakeholder initiatives in cocoa, in palm oil, and others of our government as well in the field of soy, for example. With this, we bring forward the dialogue between the different sides, so demand side and production side. And of course, the international dialogue is important. Like the Tropical Forest Alliance, to have a more horizontal approach across the different product categories. And so we talk as well individually with companies and civil society, to identify as well first movers, not only multi-stakeholder initiatives. And so we run all sorts of different pilots. I'm pleased that two of the countries of German cooperation supports are in the spotlight today, Colombia and Indonesia. Both members are of the Tropical Forest Alliance and pioneers in implementing jurisdictional approaches. So thank you for that. I want to express my special thanks to the participants of the dialogues in Indonesia and Colombia. You demonstrated that even during a global pandemic, multi-stakeholder dialogue does not have to stop. Despite the problems we face in the virtual world, you accepted the challenge and have familiarized yourself with new tools and have been committed during weeks, developed a common vision with other actors, and you identified levers where better multi-stakeholder collaboration can drive systemic change. So I'm very grateful for your participation in this workshop today. And thank you very much for providing your time and expertise. I'm sure that you will have a fruitful exchange today. And because of COVID, I have to leave the meeting quite soon to take my kids. So we do all work with double effort. And so thank you as well for everybody who's making it possible to join today. And back to the moderation.
Thank you, Lisa. That's great. And we couldn't have done this without the support of German cooperation. So thank you for the support that you and your staff gave. Just to repeat before we go into our next section, that we do have interpretation available, and we also have the opportunity for a Spanish-only breakout group later on in the sequence. So I'm just going to bring my colleague Sandra onto the screen. And Sandra, can you just tell that to everybody in a language that they will understand rather than mine?
Thank you very much, Simon. Muchas gracias. Buenos días a todos, todas. Recordarles que tenemos interpretación de inglés a español y de español a inglés. Pueden dar en el botón que está abajo, que es un mundo, que pone interpretación, y también habrá un grupo solo con personas que hablen en español, y pueden ponerlo en el chat para que les podamos asignar ese grupo. Gracias.
Thank you. So do make your choice if you wish to go down those routes. I'll now bring in Pascal Faby, and he was the initial genesis behind this idea, the Senior Advisor for Learning and Impact in the Green Commodities Programme's Green Commodities community. And Pascal, let's get together and talk about how the idea started in the first place that we would have these jurisdictional dialogues.
Hi, Simon, thanks, and hi, everybody. Well, the genesis goes back to 2018, really. When we realized that the last 10 years had seen a great deal of increase in the number of initiatives and actors working at landscape, at jurisdictional level across various SDGs, in fact. And it became clear that very few were making adequate connections with agreed national processes and platforms, and even less so with each other's. So pretty much everyone I spoke at that time recognized that most of these important initiatives were taking place in silo, despite obvious opportunities for collaboration between them. One could argue that the situation remains today, really. So that's the genesis.
So that was the original thought, but what happened next?
So in 2019, UNDP commissioned a study to map collaboration gaps and identify opportunities for greater vertical and horizontal alignment between initiatives and actors that works on sustainable commodities and deforestation. The finding of this research are captured in a report called 4-Dimensional System Change, which we are launching with this meeting, available in the chat in a few minutes. Keen to see the report used as opposed to end up in a drawer, 3 teams came together to help local practitioners from West Kalimantan and Caqueta unpack the report findings and identify areas where it could be applied in their context. The 3 teams were UNDP's Green Commodities Program, UNDP's Climate and Forest team with their work on the Governance Task Force, and our colleagues from GIZ. So all was very good and that's when the pandemic hit all of us.
And so your best laid plans were really challenged by COVID. So what did you do? There must have been a temptation just to stop at that point.
Yeah, very strong temptation indeed. But when it became clear to us in April, May 2020 that we couldn't meet in person in Bogor, Indonesia, we had to decide whether to postpone or to press ahead despite the time pressure. We decided to seize the opportunity and develop a new way of bringing stakeholders together. So we created a blueprint and turned this original South-South event into a 6-week series of virtual dialogue in both regions, in both jurisdictions.
So what were you trying to achieve? What were the objectives in that virtual dialogue?
We had 3 objectives. We became ambitious with the new opportunity provided by this virtuality, acknowledging that we would lose the in-person relation, but probably understanding that there was other opportunities provided. So we had 3 objectives. The first one was to raise the awareness of local participants about the critical importance of adopting a systems change approach to working on sustainable commodities and deforestation. That was objective number 1. Objective number 2 was to really bring together actors that usually do not talk to each other because they don't see themselves as part of the same systems, and bring them with a view to identify levels of change to the specific problem related to commodities and deforestation. That was the second. The third objective was to use the recommendation of the 4-Dimensional System Change report to encourage and facilitate greater alignment and collaboration between these actors. So these objectives, 3 interwoven objectives, in fact, Simon, if you want.
Great. Well, thank you for taking us through the beginning of the story. We're going to continue the story now on video. And what we're going to show now isn't actually a finished video. It's the key sections to which we're going to add the content from today's event. So what our hosts have said at the start, this interview just now with Pascal, we're also going to hear from Paul Hartman from the Jeff immediately after we've seen the video clips. So you'll hear facilitators talking about how they approach the challenge of learning across the 4 dimensions of systemic change. And crucially, you'll hear participants from Indonesia and Colombia speaking about their experience of systems thinking transformation. So that video will be available, the completed video available in about 3 weeks' time. We'll make sure that distributes to everybody who's on this event. If you're listening to the Spanish translation, then just keep listening to that translation. It'll continue throughout the video. So Lavinia, if you'd like to trigger the video, it'd be good to see it now. Thank you.
The fact of having a parallel training happening in Colombia on one side and Indonesia on the other side, that were like, I think 12 hours apart, 2 different time zones and 2 different continents. I think that it was very powerful that it was happening and participants knew, especially because we're talking about systems thinking. It's not only on the local, but on the international level, in the global level. The participants knew that this was happening, and we kept saying that again and again, because we wanted them to get the sense that this is happening somewhere else in the world.
En el caso de Kalimantan Occidental, se definió una plataforma multiactor y multi-commodities para compartir datos para la planificación sostenible de las plantaciones.
We saw some participants really took all of the system thinking concept and really implemented not only within the actual goal setting exercise that we did for West Kalimantan, because that was great, you know. People are excited and they really want to take it on in terms of actually building a database for West Kalimantan sustainable plantation. Overall, the thing that makes me most proud of being a part of the West Kalimantan workshop is being able to see the participants actually implementing things that they got to know of from the workshop itself in their day-to-day activities.
Y en el departamento de Caquetá, en Colombia, se establecieron las bases para desarrollar un sistema de extensión forestal que no existía previamente. Y esto fue definido por los propios participantes.
The journey changed over time when trust is starting to emerge, when relationship is starting to again flourish. When curiosity stays, which I think it's a really important element on any learning journey, curiosity and hope. And hope is starting to evolve over the period of the training.
Existe esa realidad muy compleja, también necesitamos soluciones complejas, esas soluciones nunca son sencillas y hay que mover muchas palancas para transformar un sistema, para realmente afrontar esos retos. Y esa responsabilidad nunca puede ser de solamente un actor, de por ejemplo un gobierno o de un productor pequeño o de las empresas grandes.
The fact that towards the end, you no longer see, differences between government agencies or civil society or private sector. They're already much more of a similar unit compared to how it starts in week 1.
What we are most proud of at the end of this dialogue is really, I think we've created an appetite among participants to work with a new mindset around system change and system approaches. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that they've realized the power of collaboration, and they've discovered obvious opportunity for alignment and synergies among themselves.
El enfoque sistémico yo lo veo como ese enfoque que permite generar y desarrollar como una secuencia lógica de los procesos necesarios para cumplir un objetivo común, en el cual nos articulamos los diferentes actores involucrados en ese propósito, en ese objetivo común, y son los que hacemos, digamos, los aportes requeridos para lograr ese objetivo común, pero de una manera sinérgica.
Realmente se logró una cooperación y una coordinación, integración entre los actores y de alguna forma, a pesar del poco tiempo, se plantaron las semillas para una transformación sistémica.
Toda esta extensión forestal que se quiere desarrollar con enfoque sistémico para que haya participación de todas, de todos, para que sea un proceso que se genere, se comience y luego se siga multiplicando a lo largo de las localidades del Caquetá, a lo largo del departamento.
And also I'm proud of one particular moment when we were exploring what is a system, and one of the participants started saying, oh, I am starting to understand the system that I am in. So that was like a jewel too in this journey.
Salah satunya seperti itu. Jadi kita mengenali siapa kita, siapa kawan kita, siapa saja yang ikut di dalam sistem, kemudian bagaimana mereka mengeluarkan pendapat, apa pendapat mereka, dan sebagainya. Dan
one very important success criteria for this type of dialogue is to ensure that you bring
Facilitadores fueron clave y fundamentales en este proceso de transformación sistémica. Tuvimos la oportunidad de contar con un tándem de facilitadores, una persona local con conocimiento de las condiciones, los actores, la idiosincrasia, los sistemas productivos y forestales, y unas facilitadoras especialistas en enfoque sistémico.
Definitely, if I were to compare and contrast the offline versus online experience, the level of energy that you have to bring as a facilitator every time you facilitate a virtual workshop would be 4 times the normal energy you would like. You want your participants to feel that they are in the same room.
Yo creo que un indicador de éxito es que el número de participantes no disminuyó durante esa serie de eventos virtuales y los participantes incluso se reunieron aparte de los momentos virtuales en grupos de trabajo.
Kalau di diri saya, itu tadi, saya sudah bisa berdiri sebagai orang lain. Bukan sebagai diri saya pribadi.
Experience. It's that moment when people have an aha moment. That aha moment, I think, is precious. And I, as a facilitator, I love that when people see what they haven't seen before. And that aha for me is that moment of like oh, now I can see whatever is that, whether it's a different perspectives, your own perspective, when you start listening to somebody else, I think that is precious.
So there we are. That's our set of clips from the video that we're going to construct using the material that's in this particular event as well. So we're obviously having a few Zoom glitches with it coming down the line. So the great advantage when we finish the video is that we'll be able to send it to you on a link and you'll be able to watch it in high quality at home. Now, what I hope can happen now is that I can introduce someone who knows that 4-dimensional systemic change report very well. You can see the link in the chat box from Sandra. Go to the Green Commodities website And you'll see then that we have the report available for you to look at, and you saw a few sections of it coming up on the screen during the video. But some of the insights, some of the case studies in there were contributed by our colleagues at the Global Environment Facility, and particularly by Paul Hartman, who's the GEF lead for the Good Growth Partnership and the Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Impact Programme. So Paul, if I can bring you onto screen now and ask you what you would take from what we've just seen in those video clips.
Thanks very much, Simon. Hopefully I can come onto screen. It looks like it's frozen. I'll start off by saying, I guess, buenos dias, good afternoon, dan selamat malam. As Simon mentioned, I'm the GEF lead for the Good Growth Partnership, as well as the lead for our Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Impact Program. So the GEF Good Growth Partnership was jump-started in our GEF 6 replenishment cycle. And it represents the kind of collective force that we think is needed to bring about a transformational shift in the global agricultural commodity system and to reduce deforestation and its devastating impacts on biodiversity and carbon emissions in the tropics. The program's approach reinforces the needs for actors across the supply chain to embrace best practices and sustainability principles, and for clear linkages to be established among production, demand, and financing actors. Over the past 4+ years, GGP partner organizations, UNDP, CI, WWF, IFC, and UNEP, as well as governments, private sector entities, financiers, and communities have worked together to contribute solutions to deforestation caused by 3 commodities, soy, beef, and palm oil, in 4 countries, Paraguay, Indonesia, Liberia, and Brazil. Together, these countries have great potential to champion many of the innovative policies and practices necessary for achieving the transformative shift that we must apply in order to deal with the challenges at hand. The GEF believes that only through the integrated approach at the core of the Good Growth Partnership can transformational change across the totality of the system be attained. So while it broke up a little bit, there are elements of the video we just watched on the process and experiences of the jurisdictional dialogues in Colombia and Indonesia that really resonate with the on-ground experiences of the GEF Good Growth Partnership. First, on breaking silos and building trust. The GGP program went from a starting point a few years back of what I like to call institutional ego to an initial step of coordination, and then move beyond this to real collaboration. Relationship building was a necessary component of this progression, as once trust was in place, each of the partners, all of whom are equally committed to achieving impact, realized that there were clear benefits that others could bring to their efforts, and as importantly, that they could bring to the initiatives of other partners. We can see the fruits of this in Indonesia, where the Foxbee National Commodities Platform for Sustainable Palm Oil Production, which was initiated by UNDP, has coordinated partnerships with GGP partners, CI and WWF, for each of the program's pilot jurisdictions in Riau, North Sumatra, and West Kalimantan. These types of cross synergies have now taken hold across the program's target countries and commodities. The second point that resonated is on embracing complexity. Partners have learned the importance of understanding the system that they're in, but understanding the system doesn't mean that any single actor, program, or approach can single-handedly change the system, as the system is far too complex. Embracing this complexity and recognizing where your contribution to systemic change lies has been an important lesson of the program for the GEF and its partners. Finally, around transforming mindsets. While I wasn't at the GEF when the GGP was first designed 6 or 7 years ago, and Andrew was there, I can say with some certainty that the whole concept of system change in the commodity space was still very nascent. This has evolved over time, and thanks to the scaling of knowledge and learning that has gone on as a result of the thoughtful processes represented through these dialogues and in the 4-dimensional systems change report, the focus on systems change across the agriculture and food sector was built more directly into the GEF's Global Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Program. This global program focuses on 5 deforesting commodities: soy, beef, palm, coffee, and cocoa, as well as food crops, rice, wheat, and maize, that are causing environmental degradation. The program is working in 27 countries, and the GEF investment of $350 million is leveraging $1.2 billion in co-financing. We also expect that the systems change approach will be even more prominent in the GEF 8 food systems program, where the replenishment is just now kicking off. The Global Environment Facility welcomes the innovative South-to-South jurisdictional dialogues that are on display here today, and the results of this and other processes that led to the development of the 4-dimensional systems change report that is being launched. We hope that these will serve to improve the understanding and practice necessary to achieve success in jurisdictional approaches and lead to a reduction in deforestation that is critical to transforming the food system and maintaining the global environment. Thanks very much, and I'll turn it back over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Paul. Some great insights there. And talking of insights, if you look into the 4-dimensional systemic change report, which you'll see on the link in the chat box there, there are some insights which are case studies of how these principles have been applied in many countries around the world. We should also call out alongside our other colleagues, the Climate and Forest team that gave us a great amount of help in putting the report together. We're now going to go into our breakout groups, some small group discussions, looking at how this approach could work in other countries and other contexts. Now, when you join your group, you'll find a facilitator who will introduce themselves and will then guide the discussion. So we'll spend 15 minutes in these discussions. There's the list of facilitators on screen there. And if you could take us into that discussion segment, that'd be great. Thank you. You'll have had a real live participant joining you as